Hello everyone, I'm David Law, Superintendent of Minnetonka Public Schools.
And I'm Sally Brown, a Director on the Minnetonka School Board.
We're glad you're able to join us for our School Board Recognitions Program. It's important to take time to acknowledge and celebrate the outstanding accomplishments of our students, staff, and community members.
We begin most of our regular board meetings with recognitions to highlight the positive impact that so many different people make in our district.
Tonight, we are recognizing Boys Alpine Ski State Champions, Girls Alpine Ski State Runners-Up, Girls Nordic Ski State Runners-Up, Boys Nordic Ski State Qualifiers, Varsity Cheerleading State and National Qualifiers, Junior Varsity Cheerleading State Qualifiers, First Lego League State Qualifiers, First Tech Challenge State Qualifiers, and a class of Deep Haven Elementary third graders who earned national recognition in NASA's Plant the Moon competition.
We will begin with the boys and girls alpine ski teams.
The Skipper boys team won the state championship, earning the 9th first place finish in program history.
The Skipper girls team were state runners-up, finishing second overall this year.
Both the boys and girls teams are led by head coach David Gartner, along with assistant coaches Steve Methune, Marley Benson, and Duncan Hurlbrink.
Before we recognize each team by name, let's hear more about the team's season.
Hi, my name is Dave Gartner, head coach of Minnetonka Alpine Ski Team. I'm very proud of both boys and girls teams this season. They both won the Section 5 meet, and at state, the boys went on to win their third title in 4 years, and the girls finished a very respectable second. So proud of you guys. Congratulations. Go Tonka.
Congratulations to the following boys Alpine State champions: Oscar Anderson, Max Barrett, Connor Cox, Julian Forales, John Turcott, John Whipson, and Channing Scott.
Congratulations to the following girls alpine state runners-up: Amelia Beckman, Charlotte Kinzer, Amelia Sassenfar, Stella Stinnett, Safina Switz, Lena Whitty, Stella Bartz, and Mira Worrell. The girls' Nordic ski teams qualified for state competition this year, where they placed second overall.
2 members of the boys' Nordic ski team qualified for state, and they finished in the top 12 as individuals.
The boys and girls Nordic teams are led by head coach Sean Kern, along with the following assistant coaches and volunteer coaches: Ed Atwood, Eric Paulson, Tim Reese, Olivia Graupman, Lauren Dahl, Leah Malek, Alex Falconer, Christian Dolan, Andrew Frank. Let's hear more about the team season.
Hi everyone, this is Sean Kern. I'm the head coach of boys and girls Nordic skiing at Minnetonka High School, and I just want to send a message congratulating all athletes who participated this season, and especially those that we're honoring at the school board meeting. It was a really pretty special season, so much success accomplished on many different fronts, really amazing results and great racing. But I think most importantly, it was a great year of growth in terms of the team camaraderie, and everyone was so supportive of one another and helping them to accomplish their goals and make it just a really tremendous season. Seniors are going to be missed. You had such a tremendous contribution to our team, and I'm looking forward to great racing in the future as well. Thank you.
Congratulations to the following girls Nordic ski state runners-up: Catherine Hackney, Sylvie Hooker-Reese, Evelyn Malik. Evelyn also finished 4th overall. Avery Marasco Johnson. Avery also finished 11th individually. Lucia Ruhoff, Chloe Steinkraus, Stella Swanson, Sydney Whiteside.
And congratulations again to the boys Nordic ski state participants: Peter Hackney, 7th place, and Jack Malek, 12th place.
Minnetonka cheerleading has a legacy of excellence at the state and national level, which they continued to build upon this year.
The team placed 3rd at state in 2 categories: varsity game day tumbling and varsity tumbling.
At the UCA National High School Cheerleading Championships, the team earned 8th place in small varsity game day Division I.
The junior varsity team also had a successful year. They qualified for state and earned 5th place in their division.
Let's learn more about the season from the team.
Hi Tonka Cheer, it's Coach Marcy. I just wanted to hop on here and congratulate both teams on a really successful season. On behalf of the whole coaching staff, we are so proud of the way you showed up this year, how you represented your community, and how much fun you had as a team. So we are all just very proud, and what an honor it is to be recognized by the school board tonight. So enjoy and congratulations again.
Congratulations to the following varsity team members: Natalia Carvalho, Kaylin Crossley, Lily Davis, Isla Deutsch, Autumn Drews-Pulowski, Riley Engelstead, Mila Lewis, Valentina Longo Schumer,
Sophia Noah, Allie Pleckenpole, Madison Reese, Quinn Schroeder, Vivian Seneschal, Grace Severson, Sienna Steichen, and Callie Wilson.
The varsity team is coached by Andre Brewer, Marcy Adams-Helgren, and Dan Weaver. Congratulations to the following JV team members: Stella Bombach, Ava Daly, Lily Davis, Lila Farney, Brielle Fox, Hannah Hatsung, Cora Hendrickson, Kinley Hurst,
Karina Johnson, Madeline Johnson, Addison Kazmarkowski, Ariana Cross, Audrey Leasing, Zakea Liggins, and Kate Owsley.
The JV team is coached by Marcy Adams-Helgren, Savannah Herbert, and Ellie Hines. First Lego League is an international program that challenges students to grow their skills in teamwork and STEM.
2 teams from Minnetonka Community Education qualified for state competition this year: Team Bilthoven and Team Chips and Bots.
Let's learn more about the team's accomplishments.
Hi, my name is Francis and I'm a 6th grader at MMW. One of the most impactful things throughout FLL is our teamwork. Each of us had this small idea, and then when we collaborated, we got this big idea. I'm most proud of our building and how fun it was to make robots and attachments.
Hi, my name is Declan Bajork and I am a 4th grader at Excelsior Elementary. I participated in First Lego League on the Chips and Bots team. I had fun this season working with my teammates and going to competitions. I am really proud of how we worked really hard to make it to the state tournament and earned 2nd place in both robot design and robot performance.
Team Bilthoven is coached by Alan Jivanathan. At state, the team was finalist for the Minnesota Programming Award. Congratulations to the following Minnetonka student team members: Suraj Jayant, Adlai Jivanathan, Ames Jivanathan, and Asher Jivanathan.
Team Chips and Bots is coached by Wilbert Go. The team earned 2 awards at state, including 2nd place for the Robot Design Award category and 2nd place for the Robot Team Performance Score. Congratulations to the following Minnetonka student team members: Declan Bajorek, Francis Go, and Eric Kemp.
1 Minnetonka student team qualified for the First Tech Challenge state competition this winter. First Tech Challenge is an international program where teams collaborate to build and program a robot.
The robots compete in a 12 by 12 foot field, completing challenges designed to help students think critically and expand their knowledge of the engineering process.
This team-based, hands-on program provides exciting learning opportunities, fosters teamwork and leadership skills, and promotes excitement in science and technology.
Let's hear more about this opportunity.
Hi, my name is Alden Go, and I'm a freshman at MHS. This year at FDC, we got to the state championships. It was really fun, and we did a lot of team building. One of the most impactful things about FDC is that you can connect with a lot of professionals and learn what they do for a living. If you're interested, you should try out FTC as well.
Congratulations to Minnetonka students on Team Terminal Velocity for their success at state. Alden Go, Thomas Grovender, Bodie Lawton, Origal Renchin, Ethan Rosner.
The team is coached by Wilbert Go.
Our last recognition for this evening is for a third grade class at Deep Haven Elementary.
This fall, teacher Heather Toten's class participated in Nassau's Plant the Moon Junior competition.
As part of the project, students identified and tested what soil modifications are needed to grow nutrient-rich, sustainable food sources for astronauts. They completed their research this fall.
At the competition's closing symposium and award ceremony, the experiment from Miss Toten's class earned a Best in Show distinction.
Out of 100 teams from across the country, they were one of only 4 to earn Best in Show in the elementary division.
Let's hear more about the project.
I'm trying to see if we can grow lettuce, because then we get to send it up to the astronauts and they get to plant it.
This soil is a simulant, so they get to think about and talk about how many hours of light are on Mars, how is this similar to, or what would we change to this dirt?
Having the experience just to do it.
I think you can see their enthusiasm, and they all had to apply for jobs.
There's a planter, there's a soil scientist.
They've said their hypothesis is that the indoor plants will grow at a better rate because they have more of a controlled environment.
Our next recipient for our Best in Show Awards for the elementary division will be Team 19178, Third Dimension, Wayzata, Minnesota. Their project will indoor or outdoor lighting conditions prevail.
Awesome. So I was really impressed with Third Dimension. First of all, bravo to the team for braving the outdoors Minnesota fall weather. As you guys saw, there were uncertain parts of science that can come up, and your team experienced it all. Learning that the weather is a variable that you can and will not control is a very important part of the scientific process. So I'm glad you guys did some real-time problem solving. It sounds like you guys adjusted your method after you figured out some things might not have been working. So great work there. I'm glad you guys were able to learn so much.
Congratulations, Team Third Dimension.
Congratulations to our student scientists on this outstanding achievement. Eleanor Cunningham, Charlotte Doan, Daniil Gavorgazov, Connor Gorman, Benton Hankins, Jack Kiskis, Bo Kusik,
Olivia Kupka, Thatcher Miles, Odin Akpozo, Bryn Schrader, Noah Seeley, Piper Shepard, Callie Struck, Tanner Thompson, and Tarek Veen.
Congratulations as well to third grade teacher Heather Toten for her work to engage student learning in such a hands-on way. Great work all. That concludes our recognition program for this evening. Thank you again for celebrating with us.
The school board meeting will begin shortly.
Good evening. I'll now call the March 13th, 2025 school board meeting to order. Let's stand and say the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Mike, second?
Second.
Megan? Any discussion, questions, additions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an agenda. Next item up on the agenda is the school report from MMW, Superintendent Law.
Chair Leo Halloran, members of the board, on a monthly basis, our school leaders come and present a summary of what's happening at their school. Frequently, they include the student body or representatives. Tonight, we have from Minnetonka Middle School West, Principal Freya Schumacher, and a small army of students and staff. Ms. Schumacher.
Thank you so much, Superintendent Law, Chair O'Halloran, members of the board, members of the community. I am so excited to be here tonight to share a little bit about what is going on at MMW this year. So before I start, I just want to talk a little bit about our theme for the year, This We Believe, Belong, Achieve, Come. Just to share, before we get into the fun stuff, I have to share a little bit of the more, the dry information. But this year, knowing that we were entering into some potential significant changes to the middle school program, we really wanted to ground ourselves as a school in the research of really what is best for middle school. So as a school, we started to study this book, It's a Successful Middle School. It's a collection of all of the research about what is best for middle school that's published by the Association for Middle Level Education. And just to summarize a little bit, because this research is the grounding of our commitment to our work. It's really the foundation of all we do. And the research would say that for middle school should be responsive to student needs, to who students are in their vastly developing selves. It should be challenging. Students should be stretching themselves to reach things that they didn't believe that they could. It should be empowering. Students are learning to be self-advocates, to know who they are, to really stand up for what they believe. And it should be equitable. Students should get what they need when they need it. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach for middle school students. And most importantly, it should be engaging. Students should be excited about what they're doing, committed to their learning, owning their learning, and connected to the school. So these attributes should be seen in our culture, in our community. It should be seen in our curriculum, in our assessments, in our instruction, and it should be seen in our leadership, in our organization. And knowing this core foundation of the research for middle school, as a school, we committed to work together for student success by following this plan. I'm going to talk a little bit about our vision, just a little bit, really short, about our vision, our core values, and our priorities, and then we're going to get to the most important stuff, which is our work in action and what it means for our students. So we're going to share a little bit about that too. To start, a little bit about our vision and our commitment to our community. Our promise to the MMW community is that we will, at MMW, create and foster a safe community where all students feel a sense of belonging and can discover their strengths and interests and reach their highest potential. And I just want to share a little bit. One of the things we did that kind of really just illustrates this commitment is every year, twice a year, we have something called the Full Sail Awards, which you maybe have heard about before. It's where teachers have the opportunity to recognize students who do things beyond just academics. Maybe they are a leader in the classroom. Maybe they have an incredible sense of humor. Maybe they're persistent and really work through mistakes and challenges. And we want to put those students in the spotlight. So this year we recognized around 40 students. It was in February that we did this. It's one of the highlights, I think, for a lot of staff. It's one of my highlights. And I just want to share a note that was shared with us by staff that really, I think, encapsulates this commitment to our community. So this letter, and I'll leave out all the personal information, was written to us. It says, we wanted to shoot off a quick email to thank you very much for taking the time and efforts in recognizing our daughter at yesterday's Full Sail Award ceremony. The recognition of students' qualities and attributes outside the strict academic parameters is so important, and we are grateful that you took the time to recognize all these wonderful students yesterday. Both my wife and I mentioned how much this ceremony filled our cups with some much needed positivity, and we just wanted to say how much we appreciated this event. So thank you not only for recognizing our student, but for all these students. This was a special event, and we very much appreciate the efforts to make it happen. I think this speaks to really the incredible work that our teachers are doing with our students. It takes a special person to teach in middle school. It really does. And we have an incredible staff that is so committed to this work. So it speaks to the teachers, it speaks to the students, and it really kind of validates the work that we're doing. Our core values this year are belonging, empathy, joy, courage, and integrity. And just to kind of summarize these, we share our values with our students, what it means for us, what it means for students, what it looks like when we're living into our values. Obviously, belonging is a bedrock of our values, that all students should feel connected to our school. All students should feel safe, comfortable, and included in everything that we do. Empathy, that students should understand what other people are going through, that theirs is not the only experience, and that we can disagree and still get along. Joy is a core value, that we need to have fun with what we're doing. We feel joy when we're working hard and we're playing hard. It's satisfaction from a job well done. That's joy. And in middle school, so important is courage, to learn from mistakes, to own your mistakes, to stand up for what you believe in, to take risks. That's how we grow. Courage is so important. And lastly, integrity, which is doing the right thing when no one's watching. Integrity is making the right choice and representing all of us well. So those are our core values. Our priorities this year. So we are a school with high academic expectations and very high levels of support. We believe that all students can meet the standards and the learning targets, and part of that work is really grounded in our PLCs. So our PLCs are our teacher teams that get together to analyze student work, to help all students get the support they need to reach high levels of academic expectations. We're also prioritizing clarity and expectations. So it is a middle schooler's job to figure out where that boundary is and just keep pushing against it. And one of our jobs as a school is to be very clear about what those boundaries are, and consistent in how we enforce expectations and share that accountability. We're relationship-centered, meaning really we can't do anything if we don't have relationships with our students. There is no learning that takes place without relationship, and we really pride ourselves on having strong, positive relationships with our students. And then lastly, we're prioritizing literacy this year. Increasing student literacy, reading proficiency, joy for reading. We're doing many things to work on that, and tonight we're going to highlight one specific project. So I'm going to bring up our social studies teacher, Demi Berg, who's going to share a little bit about our Readathon initiative.
Hello, thank you for having me today. My name is Demi Berg. I am a 6th grade social studies and social studies humanities teacher, as well as the department chair. And guys, I'm in my bookish era. I am a huge reader, and I truly believe in reading for joy. And so I planned a readathon. One of my language arts colleagues shared that February is I Love to Read month, so what better time to celebrate? And so our theme was reading for joy, because so many students feel that reading is a chore or a task to kind of be dreaded. And many of us know that it is not that. It is a joy to experience new places, different times, different adventures. And so this readathon consisted of quite a bit in a single week, but one of my reasons for wanting to get this going was, first of all, I'm not a language arts teacher, and I want kids to hear, hey, you should read, from all their teachers. Disciplinary literacy is a huge focus at our school, and I know district-wide. And it ties in heavily with the school board goals of excellence and well-being, connection and belonging. excellent in student learning and support, as well as excellence in leadership and organizational support, because we are kind of leading by example. And so the readathon promoted literacy in a fun way, got the community engaged, and really promoted Read for Joy. We had a few elements. One was reading at least 10 minutes every day in the 4 core classes. We also I had reached out to a charitable organization, the Free Book Buggy, which is a Minnesota-based charity that drives around into different communities and brings a refurbished 26-foot bus full of books to different community events, different schools, and they are based out of Burnsville High School. And so we worked with Debbie Beck, the founder, to collect donations of books and money, and even I've heard a couple people are now volunteering with them, and just really helps us be able to impact our direct community. Yeah, and then we also did dress up days, had a book swap, and are doing a raffle with results coming tomorrow. So this blue googly-eyed creature is our very own MMW's Little Free Library, which was funded by a PTO grant, and the students voted, and the official name is the Bookie Monster. So that will be going up once the ground is thawed and ready. And it'll be in front of the building for curb appeal, but visibility, accessibility. During the summer, kids and fall kids have sports and families come, and there's easy access to books. For our dress-up days, Monday was get comfy, get cozy, get reading. And then Tuesday, bring your favorite characters to life. So in the middle, we've got a student who is dressed as a fairy godmother from one of her novels. Then Words on a Shirt Day was pretty popular. And hats off to reading. You could either wear a hat and be participating or not wear a hat and be participating. And then Friday was Reading Takes You Places. So very exciting. Our book swap was in the media center, and we took the books that had been donated, laid them out, and students brought their own books that they could swap with each other or the previously donated books. Any books not swapped were then put back in the donation pile. We had a pretty good turnout for our first year. Kids were very excited. I had one student going, I know both of these look good, but I only brought one book to swap. So one tried to swap a media center library book, but it was really exciting because students were connecting with each other and saying, oh, you like that book? I love that series. I read that, So very exciting. As a school, we read in 5 days, 315,325 minutes, which equates to about 220 days. So that I was very excited to hear. For the Free Book Buggy, we raised about $600 and 2 full library carts of books, which equaled out to 637, give or take, books. And there was joy. As the week went on, I heard kids leaving the room, you won't believe what just happened in this book. Like, they were very excited to connect with their friends about books. They quit going, oh, do we have to? And they were like, okay, can we read a little longer, Miss Berg? And I was like, maybe, if you finish your work. So the impact on school culture was immense in that kids were talking about books. They were asking each other. They were trying new books, finding books that sparked joy in them. And language arts isn't the only subject dealing with literacy. So I think it was cool for them to see a social studies teacher encouraging them to read. They also really love the idea of a raffle and earning tickets, so any way to gamify things goes well. We will be hosting our 2nd annual readathon next year, and there's already improvements in the works to make it bigger, better, and more impactful on our community. Thank you.
All right. I also said that we were going to go into more detail about our efforts of inclusion, belonging, and community. So I'm so excited that we have 3 teachers with us tonight. We have Kristen Spillane, Mary Schaefer, and Riley Woodruff, as well as our assistant principal, Farhan Mahmoud, and a whole bunch of students who are going to introduce themselves. So I'm going to bring them up next.
Thank you so much for having us. I'm Mary Schaefer. I'm a FIA teacher here. We have our students here. We have Grant and Carson, and Grant is going to start off with kind of introducing a little bit about it. And then actually I have some other, here's some, Colton and Carson are here. They're also some buddies. And then we have Finn and Donnie as well. So, and Alina and Violet. So I'm going to turn this over to Grant, and he's going to start off talking about kind of the unified program and what it is.
Yeah, this year MMW has introduced some unified stuff. So we have unified advisories, which is a mix of students without disabilities in advisory and with disabilities in advisory, which is pretty awesome. And next year we're going to have unified PEs, which is basically the same thing, but just as PE. So students can like help and just take their friendships to the next level. And then Best Buddies is an after-school program, but Unified is different from that because it takes place during school. So many more students can participate with that. And then Special Olympics has funded our field trips this year. So during school, we students with a one-on-one buddy in Best Buddies, so like Colton and Carson or Finn and Donnie, and there's a lot more. And we go on field trips, like we watch the Unified State bowling tournament or basketball tournament, and then we're going to watch then we're gonna go bowl pretty soon, and then we have a soccer tournament that we're gonna play in, and then there's one more, which is it was our track and field event at Wayzata.
Now we're going to bring up Finn.
The Best Buddies and the Unified Program's goals are to create an inclusive environment where students with and without disabilities can participate together in activities. And our key goals include promoting inclusion, developing physical, social, and emotional skills, encouraging social interaction, building leadership skills, and improving health and wellness of our students.
All right, so we're going to ask them a couple questions. And so Donnie and Carson and Alina, can you guys come up here? All right, so we're going to ask them, what have you enjoyed? So let's start with Alina first. What have you enjoyed?
I joined having fun with Donnie, Carson, and Violet at Best Buddies and stuff like that. And
Donnie, how about you?
Hanging out with friends.
Do you like to go on the field trips?
Yeah. Do you like to hang out with your friends? Yeah. Do you like the fun activities? Yeah.
All right, and then we're going to turn over to Finn. Finn, what have you learned? Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
While he's pulling that up, I'm just going to show for Unified Advisory, we play 400 a lot, so that's kind of a picture of our advisories getting together and playing.
Middle school can be a strange time for students. I'm sure you all remember. But by being in Best Buddies, I've learned to not just think about myself and my day, but to think about others. I've learned about the difficulties some of my peers have to face, and it shows me how far a friendship can go. This program has blessed me with friendships that mean a lot to me, and I'm thankful for this group that I get to be a part of at MMW.
Inclusion is really important to me because it can mean a lot of things. So I think the definition is important itself because everyone belongs and everyone should have a place where they can feel welcomed and have a sense of belonging. And I also think it's important because nobody should be separated by their differences. And I think like these unified and best buddies can pull everyone together, and I think all these can build friendships, and inclusion is just, we're not leaving anyone out even though they may be different from yourself.
All right, then we just have some pictures kind of our unified advisory classes up here. And here's one, again, of our unified advisory. And then we're going to, like we said, we went to the Target Center. So here's a picture of us at the Target Center. And another one. If you would like to, we're going to be participating in the Watertown Mayor Unified Soccer. So if anyone wants to come watch us, and then Unified Track and Field Meet. So come cheer us on. Thank you.
All right. So obviously there's a lot going on at MMW. Some of the things that are on our horizon for quarter three, just a day in the life of MMW. We're wrapping up quarter three here. We have 2 more weeks. Next week is Inclusion Week at MMW. So we have a theme day every day. It's going to be a fabulous week. Pastel Palooza is our 2nd annual 8th grade dance. That's Friday, a huge deal. We're also preparing for standardized assessments, which take place after spring break. And kind of most importantly is we have a new and updated program model and schedule at MMW. So we're really prioritizing the planning and implementation of those changes. So a lot happening at MMW. And lastly, I just kind of want to share with this thought. There's so much that happens in a school year, sometimes you kind of forget. And actually, David Law reminded me of this the last time we met, that way back in October, we raised a ridiculous amount of money for Tackle Cancer. And we told the students, hey, if we raise this much amount, we'll have an overnight in the courtyard. The staff will have an overnight in the courtyard. And lo and behold, the students raised all that money. So we had an overnight in the courtyard, which we forced Farhan to come too. So it consisted of, we all slept in tents. We had 3 live meets set up with students to share with the community. David Law read our community a nighttime story, which was unforgettable. But I think I just want to end with this little story because it kind of just means so much to me. It is such a funny little thing. We were together sitting by the fire, and we noticed this drone coming uncomfortably close over the courtyard. And we noticed that it had something attached to it. And lo and behold, it dropped and landed in the courtyard. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what would a middle schooler be dropping in a courtyard? And I was a little nervous, but we found it and realized it was a package of Cool Ranch Doritos. And this student had figured out how to use his drone to carry it over our courtyard. I just want to read this note because it kind of just really illustrates the best parts of MMW in middle school. He said, "Dear teachers, thank you for all you do. I'm dropping 2 more things. Please don't get me in trouble. The last item is gummy crushers that might come down faster, so look out." But really, I just think this couldn't happen without the incredibly caring teachers we have. It couldn't happen without the incredibly innovative and intelligent students that figured out how to do this. And it couldn't happen without the support of our school board and our community that lets us do these crazy things. So I just want to thank you all. I want to thank all of our students and teachers that were shared tonight. And if you have any additional questions, we can answer any questions as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks for that great report. Board members, any questions or comments? I'll just say it was a wonderful report. I really appreciated everything from the high expectations for student achievement to inclusivity and especially hearing about the drones. That was fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda. We've reached the time for community comments. Do we have anyone here wishing to address the board? Community comments is an opportunity for the public to address the school board on an item included in this agenda in accordance with the guidelines. And we don't have anyone here wishing to address the board, so we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is our literacy update. Superintendent Law.
Chair Leo Halloran, members of the board, it's hard to follow such an amazing student presentation.
We don't have any drones to drop Cool Ranch Doritos or anything.
Again,
missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity, great. This board agenda has, things are happening in Minnetonka, and tonight there are big items and updates. The first of them related to board goals and, really improving academic excellence across the district is our literacy update. Associate Superintendent Dr. Amy Ledoux and Literacy Coordinator Alyssa Rutherford will be here with this report.
Good evening, Superintendent Law, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, although I have to agree, pretty tough act to follow, but we'll do our best. So we're excited to provide you with an update on our district literacy efforts and our progress toward implementation of our updated literacy plan. So this goal really is centered in excellence in student learning and support and ensuring that robust instructional core is really carried out throughout our buildings. The district goal is about implementation of the updated literacy plan, and this centers on providing training for all of our teachers. It's evaluating our literacy materials, ensuring that students are screened, that we're monitoring students' growth to determine if the interventions and the extensions that we're using are having the intended impact and what adjustments we might need to make, and then identifying and addressing gaps in achievement, especially those that are predictable. So our district literacy work is also being guided by the Minnesota READ Act goal that was set forth for all school districts as a part of the 2023 legislative session. The READ Act replaced the Read Well by third grade that was formerly part of the World's Best Workforce legislation. And this new goal is really centered on every student, every year, reading at grade level, beginning in kindergarten, and that we're making sure that our multilingual learners and our students receiving special education are also achieving their individual reading goals and heading toward meeting grade level in the area of reading. Districts are all required as a part of this legislation to provide evidence-based reading instruction no later than the 26-27 school year. This is an overview of the key components of the READ Act, and you've seen these previously. The READ Act continues, though, to be a work in progress, both at the state level as well as in our district. Last year during the legislative session, it was revised. We lovingly had called that READ Act 2.0. And we anticipate that there'll be further updates during the 2025 legislative session. Curious if it'll be 2.5, 3.0, not sure how significant yet. We've had many efforts during the current school year to really advance our literacy work. We launched our local literacy plan. We've worked with our K-5 teachers on an updated instructional model. We've continued to refine our assessment practices and really focused on data literacy. We've provided extensive professional learning. We've continued our English language arts curriculum review, and we've further advanced the framework that we've put in place with MTSS. We'll be going into more depth on these items throughout this report. The district local literacy plan follows the Minnesota Department of Education templates and includes all of these components. I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa and let her highlight the work we've been doing with professional learning.
Hi. So the READ Act requires specific professional learning for all, well, for teachers. Oh, just the arrow. Okay. Awesome. This is my first time up here. And so it kind of goes in two phases because there's two different deadlines based on teachers' roles. So phase 1 is educators in grades K through 3 and grades K through 12 if they are reading intervention or special education educators. And then phase 2 is grades 4 through 12. The approved platforms for phase 2 will be identified in October by MDE, and the deadline for that phase is, I think, 2027. We partnered with Core Learning for a 5-day reading academy to meet these requirements, and we actually had an expanded group of teachers. So our phase 1 included grades 4 through 5, our ELT, our multilingual learners in K-5, as well as advanced learning teachers. So they have all kind of completed these 5 days of learning and are now in process of demonstrating their mastery of the content. We'll talk more about that later. So, so these are kind of the topics that were covered each of the days this school year. Day 1 and day 2 of the 5-day series was last school year. And those covered phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics. And then August was our day 3, where multisyllabic word reading, spelling, and fluency were the topics. And November was day 4, vocabulary and syntax at the word level, so meaning how does a word fit within a sentence, like parts of speech and things like that, and how can we make that more clear for students. Then in January was the final day, where it's a little capstone of comprehension, which is kind of the outcome we want all kids to have with reading skills, and how to make that a little more explicit as well, thinking about syntax at more the sentence or passage level, where kids can tackle then that complex text. And of course, the strategies that you can use as a teacher to enhance those comprehension processes, as well as comprehension products. So all these sessions included curriculum connections, applications to practice components. What I love the most about the core learning series is the teaching reading sourcebook text that comes with it for teachers. It has model lessons and explicit evidence-based practices so that they can use that to then implement. And it's curriculum agnostic, so it goes with any resource that they might have. Teachers are completing assessments this spring to demonstrate mastery of content as required by MDE, and that includes submission of artifacts of their application in the classroom and reflection, short answer questions, as well as multiple choice questions that kind of cover the content or the knowledge of the literacy and language skills that they learned throughout the series. Let's see here. In addition to the core professional learning days, which was the bulk of our, well, I guess like the whole of our K-5 teachers, that phase 1 group, right? There's been other professional learning opportunities embedded throughout our system, trying to support that MTSS framework, strengthening PLCs, Tier 1 instructional approaches and student engagement. That's system-wide. And then there were some sessions that were offered during Teaching and Learning Academy as well, where teachers could go even deeper with some of their literacy learning. One was how to maximize the use of the decodable readers that the foundation so graciously donated. We'll talk about that again later. We also partnered with a expert in Mandarin Chinese to bring some science of reading research to our Chinese immersion teachers, both our elementary and our secondary. And so she led some sessions that were and actually like a large percentage of our teachers of Chinese immersion opted to attend that session, even though it was during Teaching and Learning Academy prior to the school year starting. And then we had some offerings of Tier 1 literacy extensions led by our lovely Director of Advanced Learning and her team, Diane Runquist. And then we launched a literacy instructional model at the start of the school year, and throughout the school year at different screening times have led data response planning meetings. Dr. Riga and I partnered to do that and analyze the screening data, look at instructional responses. We'll talk more about that later too. And of course, our MTSS process guide is in that full implementation year, and we are working to get teachers to understand that process as well. Let's see here. Instructional routines and strategies in support of literacy and student engagement for our secondary teachers has been highlighted as well. And then I attended some middle school staff meetings to just do a little blurb about disciplinary literacy and how to use some of the instructional practices that have been embedded throughout our professional learning the last couple years. Just a little reminder of like, hey, read, write, discuss, let's do it every day in every class. Here are some ways you can do that and engage students. Let's see here. So plans for next year, continuing to support that MTSS framework, Tier 1 instruction and student engagement, our PLC work, new implementation of district ELA curriculum, which obviously comes with some training around the resource, but that's going to be paired with how do we also include our core learning strategies and our literacy instructional model to support that implementation, and continued implementation of evidence-based approaches for literacy intervention in grades K through 12. We are also really excited about the guidance coming from MDE and CARE about intervention models for grades K through 12. That's coming by November of this coming school year. Then disciplinary literacy, regardless of who is identified, but for phase 2 with the READ Act training, we want to make sure that all of our teachers in 6-12 have some level of support with how to best support kids with literacy. So we won't hear about that phase 2 option until October, but we're going to keep in mind based on who's identified for that group. It kind of ebbs and flows. First they're like people who are in charge of ELA, or they're like, oh, just anybody who's in reading instruction. But we know that everyone kind of supports reading instruction, so we're still not sure who that really means. And once we find out, we'll decide what else we want to add and do with people who aren't in the official phase 2 with the READ Act required training. Last but not least, of course, our lovely paraprofessionals will have an opportunity of 8 hours of READ Act training. This is going to be implemented through our regional literacy networks, which is a group that has been developed from the READ Act that supports each region of the state with implementation. And so that 8 hours of training will be in two-hour modules, and there's also a possibility for some people from Minnetonka to be able to get that training to then deliver that training for our paras. So we're excited about that happening next school year as well. And now assessment with Amy.
So as we advance our literacy work, our use of data has been an important component. When we talk about data literacy, we're talking about making sure that everybody has a shared understanding of the purpose for each of the assessments, how to best use that data to make decisions about your instructional response, how to access the data, and finally, how to use that data to respond in instruction. The goal by each level really in K-8 is purpose and use of benchmark and screening data. In 6-12, it's focusing more on understanding the purpose and use of the early warning system. And then at the system level, it's really about monitoring benchmark and screening data with our multi-tiered system of support district and building teams. So as we look at the screening that we're using in our district, as you know, FastBridge was already a part of our district assessment plan prior to the READ Act. However, as a result of the READ Act, we have made some shifts in how we're implementing screening, particularly in first grade. We're doing the early reading screening 3 times a year, and then we start those curriculum-based measures in the winter. Previously, we focused more on the curriculum-based measures. This gives us a more holistic view of each of our students in the area of reading and literacy. Additionally, for students who are not at the benchmark, this year we've started some what they call gated screening, but it's an additional screener for our 2nd and 3rd graders when they're not yet meeting the benchmark. And that allows us to get some additional information, which we follow up with diagnostic assessing so we can make sure that we're meeting those individual needs. We're also now screening all of our 5th graders 3 times a year. And that's really in response to our MTSS framework as we monitor students' progress and make sure students are growing at the rate expected, regardless of if they're already at or above grade level. So that's been a shift that will also be really positive as kids transition to the middle school. We'll continue to screen our immersion students in the language that they're being instructed, or that target language. We also are expecting further guidance, ironically April 1st, from the MDE for screening for grades 4 through 12. And we expect that that'll also give us some guidance as it relates to diagnostic assessments for those students not yet at grade level. And then finally, we continue to support our teachers in that analysis of their student data and using that so it can be an effective tool to help us be more successful with all of our students.
So it's essential to have a high quality Tier 1 instruction, because that way we have ensure more kids read at grade level with that initial instruction, right? And then we reserve our highly skilled and knowledgeable intervention teachers for our students who need the most intensive support. And so these are all the components of Tier 1 that we've been working in with this current school year: our PLCs, our professional learning, and our work to use data to inform our instruction. And this is, so although we have not yet implemented new resources in that Tier 1 for ELA, teachers are already implementing some of these evidence-based interventions, extensions, or approaches based on that professional learning. And this is actually a visual of a system-wide tab in the PLC log that all teachers have access to. I like to call it a little toolbox. It kind of reminds me of those Home Depot drawers. And each little drawer that you pull out or link that you click on leads to a set of tools. And we keep adding to that toolbox for teachers so that they can have the tools that they need to differentiate both extensions and interventions, and guidance around general Tier 1 instructional moves for engagement and literacy. So this is a K-12 resource, not just an elementary resource. So within that tool is, within that toolbox, I should say, is a couple different data analysis protocols. One of them is the screening to intervention tool, which is actually embedded in the FastBridge program. And so teachers can use this to determine what might be a recommended intervention or response. So this is an example of like a first grade teacher applying that screening to intervention to determine a need for students, and those are some of the materials that they used. And we'll continue to use this screening to intervention tool moving forward and refine some of those practices next school year when we continue to have some data response planning meetings with teachers. For our grades 2 through 5 and our first grade immersion, we are using the 4-box sort protocol, which was recommended by Carrie as an analysis tool for figuring out kids' skills based on their oral reading fluency data. So if a student is accurate and reading at the expected rate, they likely fall into either group 1, maybe they need some comprehension support, or maybe the grade level instruction is going to meet their needs and they don't need necessarily something additional. If a student is accurate with their reading, but they're reading very slowly, they likely need fluency instruction. And if they're inaccurate and slow, they probably have some decoding needs or unfinished phonics learning. A lot of our first graders actually end up there because, of course, first grade is when you're still learning some of that code. And then group 4 is if you're inaccurate but high rate. One of our Chinese immersion teachers called this fake fluency because they're reading fast but not accurate. So that is a group where you're like, okay, we have to figure out what's going on. Are they reading quickly and they're masking a decoding need, or are they just not really monitoring their comprehension? So based on what the kids' data says, then you kind of think, what diagnostics might I need? For example, in group 3, if it shows they might have a decoding need, a teacher would want to look and see what is the unfinished phonics learning that I might need to help them catch up with. And so we have a tool from our core training called the Assessing Reading Multiple Measures that has a phonics diagnostic. And so teachers use that diagnostic to figure out the starting point of instruction for reteaching of any unfinished phonics learning in Group 3, for example. So, and with that decoding group, it's really great to have these decodable readers for using to help address those unfinished phonics skills. And if you haven't heard yet, that our foundation provided a $100,000 grant to purchase some of these readers for our classrooms. It was a total of 35,292 books, and will hopefully impact kids for years to come because they are obviously reusable year to year. We were able to purchase with an additional contribution from the district for all grades of K through 2, whereas with the $100,000 it might have only covered K and 1, and so that was really nice to have our second grade teachers have access to some decodable texts that are at second grade level as well. Both Spanish and English classrooms have access to these resources. Since Chinese is, not a alphabetic language, decodables aren't necessarily the most appropriate resource. We are currently in Chinese language arts immersion review, and so we're going to be considering what resources would be best for them for teaching that particular language. Also, this year, we tried out a reading core tutor in Excelsior and Minnetonka to see how that partnership might work. If you haven't heard of Reading Corps, it is a program through AmeriCorps or AMPACT, and they hire volunteers, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, volunteers that then they get like a stipend or benefits, and we benefit from having them work with students in our schools. And so it's evidence-based, high-dosage tutoring program, and it's very targeted with the skills for students, phonemic awareness, phonics, and fluency. And all of the students who have been participating at Minnetonka and Excelsior have made substantial and sometimes accelerated progress. So it's been a great, which we expected because Reading Corps has 30 years of history of doing that, doing just that, of having kids make progress. And so we, the principals were asked, would you like to expand this pilot? And so we've put in applications for Reading Corps tutors at each elementary site. And so we're hoping that they get approved. And if they get approved, we'll move forward with expanding this pilot into the buildings. So curriculum review, is this still me? No, this is you now.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, our English language arts curriculum review is underway. And often when we hear, curriculum, people think of a resource. And in our district, when we say district curriculum, we're not talking about those purchased resources. We're really talking about the curriculum and the way resources and practices and standards and instructional approaches are put together by our teachers to best serve our students, incorporating all of these elements. Because we know that really these are all very important elements, but the key to effective district curriculum is that consistent implementation of those evidence-based instructional practices and how our teachers bring forward those standards using a variety of resources. I think that's you.
And of course, I think we've talked about this one before, that there's a broader context to this particular ELA curriculum review. Because of the READ Act, we're thinking about our screening and how that fits into our plan for instruction with those data response planning meetings. And then also there was a review of resources by Carrie and MDE, and that has been influencing our decision-making as a curriculum review team. There's no longer any specific funding for approved resources, although we can use literacy incentive aid to purchase that, although we're using that aid for other things too, so it's always kind of a, how do you do this, right? Curricular resources must be aligned with evidence-based practices, however, right? So that review by Carrie and MDE has been something that has been informing our review, and we've been looking at highly aligned resources and also exploring additional options that haven't been reviewed yet, and then using that Carrie and MDE rubric to really help us look for those evidence-based practices and those red flags that we want to avoid in a resource, et cetera. Carrie and MDE do not have plans to review grades 6 through 12 Tier 1 resources, so we're not expecting any specifics for grades 6 through 12, except for intervention resources for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. That is going to probably come out in November. But of course, through this process, we want to select resources that will support our teachers in best implementing evidence-based literacy, and we have a commitment to that structured literacy approach, as well as designing a curriculum that has that systematic and explicit sequential pieces throughout, right? We don't want to, have different directions going in different grade levels, right? There will be a comprehensive report of the ELA review and recommendations that will be shared later this spring, so you can hear more later.
So next steps, as we think about moving forward, obviously literacy is in the forefront. We've committed to that and we'll continue that work. We know that there may be some changes and updates that our literacy plan will need later this spring, so we'll continue to revise that, both as we learn more and as new requirements come. We'll continue with the professional learning, and as Alyssa mentioned, really it'll be now implementing all the learning we've done with CORE into new curriculum in K-5, advancing the learning at the secondary with our teachers of reading, and supporting that in disciplinary literacy. The new ELA curriculum will be implemented K-12 with a focus on effective Tier 1 strategies that have been the focus at all levels. We'll deepen implementation of the MTSS framework, really looking at deepening the work we've done already at the elementary level, but then as we have more tools and more resources, really being able to advance that work in grades 4 through 12. And finally, the ongoing identification of those resources for Tier 2 and Tier 3. We have some really great resources in place, but we're also excited about what we expect to see in the coming months. So with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you both very much. Any questions, Cameron?
Thank you for being so agile with all of the standards that seem to kind of change quickly, so we appreciate that. Just a quick question about the para training. Is that online or is that going to be in person, the 8 hours?
I don't really know.
Okay, that's fair.
But so the regional literacy networks, and I think it was developed by Carrie, but I'm not positive. You don't even know that.
Okay.
But it might be a blend. I'm guessing it's a blend.
Okay.
That's what
just
we're
curious.
hearing initially, is that we're anticipating that it will be blended, but because they're giving the trainer option, if we have the opportunity, we'd prefer to be in person, just like we were with the teachers. We know that learning's social and will create a better experience.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sally.
Thank you for your report. I heard a term tonight that was new to me. Can you tell me more about disciplinary literacy?
Yeah, so David Law loves this one too, because then when he thinks discipline, as a former, administrator, he thinks of, students with behavior issues or whatever. But yeah, so disciplines are those content areas, and disciplinary literacy is different from like content area literacy because it's specifically about how you read in science or how you read in social studies. There are some reading strategies that kind of apply across content areas, right? Being able to summarize, being able to use text features. But the text features in science are very different from the text features in math. And so that's the disciplinary literacy.
Thank you.
Megan.
I also have a comment and a question. And yes, sometimes the literacy in science is not even actually letters. It's like other things. But anyway, a comment was that I really appreciate, I'm sure it felt like trudging through mud at times because the parameters were not always really clear. But I really appreciate that we haven't done the minimum. So we're ahead of the timeline. We didn't wait for the guidance. We kind of forged through anyway to get it into the classrooms. And the same thing with kind of expanding from just the required teachers to doing more of the elementary teachers, because I think the end goal is to get this to as many kids And the sooner we do so, the sooner we can start to see the impact of that. So I really appreciate that even though the parameters weren't necessarily clear and we didn't have the approved resources, that we didn't just pause and wait, because I think it really will help our students. The question that I had was around, I kind of lost it. I had a note here and I lost it in my comments. I'll come back to it if I think of it.
Okay. I had a question while you're searching your memory banks, Megan. First of all, that's a lot, and I just appreciate all the work you're both doing and all the teams at the district are doing to sort of roll this out. I think Megan's point is well taken, that we've been trying to get ahead of this before the READ Act was even a thing, and we're sort of working through both board goals and district approach and the READ Act all at once, so we appreciate that. I also just hear that a lot of professional learning for the district. I'm wondering, as you've gone through the stages you're at so far, how's it been received by the buildings, the teachers, the administrators who have been going through it?
That was my question, so thank you.
Go ahead and I can add on.
Yeah, I'll start and then Amy can add on, but I mean, just having done the data response planning meetings in buildings, the small grade levels, Dr. Riga and I having conversations with teachers about how to implement some of their learning. There's just been a lot of, teachers are like, ooh, it's a lot. This is a lot, but it's good, right? And so making those connections between what they've learned in the professional learning sessions with CORE and their data and their students and then trying it out in the classroom, they are super excited and they can't wait to see what's next for next school year.
I would say also throughout the training, we heard repeatedly that teachers were so happy to be with their cohort or their grade level department area across the district. They don't have a lot of those opportunities, and they were appreciative to have, consistent presenters to the extent possible, that it was all in person, and that we've been providing supports along the way. It's been very positive. There's been a little bit of stress about demonstrating that learning now, and again, working to really support teachers, and they're being highly successful. It's typical, Minnetonka teachers have very high expectations all the way around, especially for themselves, and they've done a really great job of really tackling this, making sure that they've mastered the learning and now demonstrating it. So really pleased with that, as well as I think it's pretty unique. We had all of our administrators who support E5 as well as Special Ed 612 fully participate in all 5 days of the training with the teachers. And that's really an important piece because it allows us to support that implementation at a whole new level when they've been in the learning. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for supporting our teachers that way. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval of 2025-26 calendar change for professional learning. Superintendent Law.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, at our most recent study session, Associate Superintendent Dr. Ledoux shared a preview of the calendar for the upcoming year as a reminder that this calendar was approved a year ago by the board with late starts and early releases. Tonight you'll get an update on how we're recommending that's changed. You heard it last month, and this is the time for the board to approve it.
Thank you, Superintendent Law, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As you'll remember, beginning with the 23-24 school year, we implemented or piloted full days of professional learning for the first time. That was extended to this current school year. And as we look to our coming school year, we again have identified extensive professional learning priorities. These were identified based on teacher and principal feedback, as well as looking at our board goals and any legislative requirements. To accomplish this, we are proposing that we permanently eliminate late starts and early releases from our professional learning calendar. We surveyed stakeholders, and overwhelmingly, this is not the most effective or popular way for teachers to learn, nor is it best for families. We also would like to permanently incorporate those full days into our school year calendar. So rather than coming to you each year at this time, we'd like them to be proactively put into the approved calendar. We would like to consider designating up to 3 days for professional learning annually, and that decision can be made based on what we see coming on the horizon. Right now, 3 days has been the right level of time or the level of support for our teachers to meet our goals, but there may be a time that we think 2 days is the right number. So we would like to keep that somewhat flexible. And then for next year, based on the list that I just shared with you, we would like to ask for those 3 days. In working with our various stakeholder groups, we gathered feedback about dates that were most conducive to professional learning. And we consider, front-loading them in the school year so that we can take the greatest advantage of them, as well as considering what's family-friendly and still teacher-friendly. So trying to balance all of the needs of the various stakeholder groups. So we're requesting that you approve August 25th, and because that's before the start of the school year, you'd actually go to June of 2026 and move the last day of school backwards there. Then November 6th, which is paired with transition day at the end of the first quarter. And finally, January 5th, which is the day that our teachers would return from winter break and extend the winter break 1 additional day for families. So we ask that you approve the updated calendar to provide these days and to reflect these changes.
Thank you very much. Any questions, first of all, from the board? All right. May I have a motion to adopt the recommended calendar changes as proposed in the report?
So moved. Second.
Chris? May I have a second?
Second.
Marie. All right, any discussion? Meg?
I just wanted to mention one thing that I don't know if it was at Teaching and Learning or one of the meetings that we were in, was that teachers really appreciated that January day right after winter break, because it was kind of a chance to regroup and get ready for students to come back the following day. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that was really well supported, and teachers felt like it was a good way to restart the second semester, or not second semester, but just the post-winter break transition.
Yeah, we did consistently hear that was a nice way for them to get, their head back into school and back, be prepared for their students. It was very well supported and one of our best attended days, least absences, so.
Dan?
Yeah, thank you for this. I mean, I think we've seen how important professional development is in, adopting evidence-based instruction and changing as we learn what works and what doesn't. I've also, just going through the list of our priorities going forward, I've heard a lot from families excited about the opportunities just surrounding professional learning and social emotional learning and culturally responsive practices. And they're very curious, like, how we're adopting those new courses, how we're going to implement them, how we're soliciting feedback and everything like that. So I hope we can hear a lot more about that going forward, how we're making those choices and bringing feedback into that process.
Yep, absolutely. And that's obviously guided by a combination of our board goals, state legislation, as we look at how we're embedding culturally responsive practices into the teacher evaluation process, as well as how we're being responsive to our students and their needs, both through being culturally responsive as well as responding to social and emotional needs of our students. So there'll be much more to come, and we'll be continuing to gather feedback and input from our teachers, from our administrators. And while we always have that frame of what that work will look like, just like we want our teachers to be responsive, we have a roadmap, but we're filling it in and responding to what teachers tell us as they move through those learning days and as needs either arise or we need more time or to shift a little. So more to come.
Yeah, I look forward to sharing more about it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on our agenda is the approval of policy superintendent law.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, tonight I'll be filling in for Executive Director of HR and Legal Counsel, Angie Flowers. I want to start by thanking Scott Gerlicher, Security Coordinator, and Dr. Jackie Getty, Executive Director of Communications, for doing a lot of work on these policies. The first policy I'm going to recommend is 803. The changes you see here are housekeeping changes aligned to our current language with our current practices. Our Security Coordinator has made several recommendations which are now in place. We begin with changing the title plan to planning because it's not a static process. You will note we have updated the word procedures throughout as well. In addition, we added inclement weather for unification, since those are matters that fall under the policy which we have prepared. There's also changes about where the procedures can be found, and they were redlined in your packet and discussed at the study session. Due to security and privacy, we don't publish all the details. We want separate procedure forms. Tonight, we're asking that you approve policy 803 as presented.
All right, may I have a motion to approve policy 803? Dan, a second.
Second.
Sally. Any discussion? Again, for the benefit of the public, we did go over this at our most recent study session, and I think these are all well explained by the materials. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Superintendent law.
The next policy, policy 806, is emergency planning. Similar to policy 803, there's a fair amount of language cleanup, beginning with the title. We also added the word emergency. The policy is titled Crisis and Emergency Planning, or Crisis and Emergency Management. We also changed some language under the purpose to show the policy does not show step-by-step procedures. The general information section shows more language updates, and that staff will be trained on procedures annually with a real emphasis on building leadership teams being a key piece of this work, along with working with special education leaders to determine what must be done to keep children with disabilities safe in our schools. We updated language to show lockdown, hold, secure definitions of those terms. A hold is a situation that doesn't arise to the level of a lockdown, but students and staff stay in place, such as a medical emergency. Secure is an external threat and where the school doors are locked, and a lockdown is a significant threat that is inside the building. These are terms recommended by experts and that we have already begun using in our community, and we've also shared this in a communication in November. We deleted redundant language for subjects previously addressed working with the special ed department. The revision is also reflecting the expectation that everyone knows their role and there will be ongoing training. There are updates about contacts, how we communicate in events of emergency, and deleted language for which we already have procedures. We're asking for approval of this policy.
All right, may I have a motion to approve policy 806?
So moved.
Megan, may I have a second?
Second.
Mike. Any questions or discussion? Again, we've covered this all at our most recent study session, and it's pretty well covered in the materials and by Superintendent Law's report. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is Facilities Task Force Next Step. Superintendent Law.
Mr. Chair, beginning almost exactly a year ago, our Facilities Task Force was formed and met frequently, leading up to community recommendations that the board would consider for potential community ask. As we've been to the board multiple times in the last few months, the next step will be presented by Executive Director of Finance and Operations, Paul Bourgeois, and that is to take these recommendations and make sure that the Minnesota Department of Education reviews them and comments as appropriate so that you are able to make a decision later this year if and when you would bring this to the community for a vote. Tonight, Mr. Bourgeois will run through the plan, the background, and next steps. Mr. Bourgeois.
Thank you, Superintendent Law. Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm actually going to add a few other details about a little bit of the history behind this because of, there might be some people who are just really kind of tuning in for the first time with everything that's going on. So just a few brief comments, but need to start off with this, our excellence in how we live, lead, and learn. These posters and this slogan, this motto is all over the district. But it's not just a slogan, it's not just a motto, it's a touchstone. It's a landing pad. It's a guide for people to align things to. It states values, it states principles, and it's like Polaris, our étoile de nord, something to line up to and guide us. So about a year ago, as Superintendent Law indicated, the admirals of the fleet decided that we needed to look at sailing some waters that we hadn't sailed in for almost 30 years. So the admirals of the fleet set the course, and the fleet turned and headed toward the North Star. So item 4 from fiscal year 24 in our school board goals had, in terms of excellence in leadership and organizational support, utilizing space strategically to accommodate all the district's growing innovative programming, including long-term facility planning for the programming needs of the district in all academic and co-curricular programs. You formed the facilities task force, or asked to have that formed, directed it to have it formed. And so in February and March, it was formed. Then 15 meetings were held between April and December, an aggressive schedule, but it's important work. We got staff input from administrators, then the presentations of all the school sites, staff surveys, community surveys, trying to get as much input as we can from as many voices as we can. At the end of that process, the facilities task force presented a ranked prioritized list of the facilities projects to consider, for the school board to consider. That was in December of 2025. And the options were reviewed over the next several months, taking into account enhancing and supporting student instruction, leaving capacity for a future operating referendum in terms of working with the voters, and being respectful to the taxpayers of the district, because they have to pay for the things that help us to house instruction for our students. So the task force priorities list is here, and the items in green italic are the ones that were, after discussion, you gave us the authorization, move ahead with putting together the review and comment to the Department of Education. Review and comment is a necessary step for all school districts to go through if they might run a bond referendum. Going through review and comment does not commit us to actually running a bond referendum, but it sets the stage to give you the option to do so if you decide the time is right. These are the items that are total up actually about $85 million, a very significant sum of money. The estimated cost is about $82.98 million for facilities, and then $2.02 million for an EPIC security system. These projects would consist of 80,500 square feet of new construction and 32,500 square feet of heavy renovation. These are all pieces of data that are in the review and comment. And again, in identifying these projects, we also looked at where the prior investments in facilities were made from 2008 through 2024 at all the district K-12 school buildings. And you can see that we added and increased facility capacity at various buildings and spent dollars on various facilities based on what the facility capacity was at the time and what we needed as the district grew and as we had an additional enrollment. And so there was several facilities, the middle schools and Deep Haven Elementary School, that have had a little bit less than the other schools. So there's a lot of focus on that. We also spent a significant amount of money at the high school, naturally. It's our largest facility, and we had to do some significant expenditures over the last almost 2 decades in that regard. Fairly uniform for most of the schools, but again, at Deep Haven and East and West Middle School, we actually had capacity that had been built by prior administrations, prior community referendums that was actually significant up to that point in time, but now they're needing a little bit of help. At the same time, we spent a lot of money on long-term facility maintenance, and we spend pretty much uniform dollars based on the size of the building across the board at our elementary schools and at our middle schools and at our high schools, with the middle schools having more because they're larger than the elementary schools, and the high school, which is our aircraft carrier, getting the most because it's almost 40% of our square footage. So the proposals, again, just from a high level, and you as a school board have seen these down to the detail level multiple times. And if people watched the stream last week, there's some more detail behind this, but in the interest of being concise, at Middle School East, we just have the main areas we're going to look at, and at the other schools. So there's two key areas of additions. In addition, of a gymnasium and performance venue on the northeast corner, and 4 science classrooms on the western side, as well as a separated bus loop that will add, basically will separate buses out of the auto queue and hopefully improve traffic flow, but also provide, by relocating it there, we'll basically gain over 100 additional parking spots for events in the evenings and on weekends. This is an overview of where those would take place. We also would be doing some internal modifications to the buildings to add some additional usage and ability to support collaborative instruction at East Middle School. Likewise, at West Middle School is similar, but and almost identical, but in different locations because of the school site, the unique nature of it. We again would be looking at doing a gymnasium and a performance venue. As another note, the gymnasium at both East and West Middle School would be replacing the 4th gym station, which is actually in the storage closet for the double gyms. So it's very, very crowded when we have 25 to 30 students in there. So that would allow us to have a regular sized venue, performance venue, and actually each of the performance venues would have 750 seating bleachers that would be extended across the gymnasium to view plays and music performances. And again, the same thing with science labs. We would be adding 4 additional science labs, giving 8 purpose-built, and 2 that have been converted over the years for 10 science labs to support science instruction. So that's kind of an aerial of how that would look. There's kind of a few pictures of the performance venue looking down from above, and 750 person seating, which is actually about 50 larger than the auditorium at Minnetonka High School. We would also be doing some work to kind of open up and add collaborative spaces at the media centers of both middle schools, and that would entail kind of opening up some walls, but putting in divider walls that are clear glass and adding windows to the outside. So for the first time, that whole area would have some natural light into it, but it would allow for large collaborative instruction and then project instruction, very similar but different to what we were doing, what we do at the Loft or at the Vantage Momentum building. And but would also then could all be opened up for very large group instructions or large group activities by encompassing that whole area on the east side of each media center and then the existing media center. So just a couple of views of that. At Deep Haven Elementary School, it's the only elementary school that has not had an additional gymnasium, and it was a high priority of the facilities task force. So we would add a gymnasium to the south end of the building. It will take a little bit of doing to relocate the additional playground. We would actually create a retaining wall, very similar to what you might see at Einer Anderson Stadium or in the front of Minnetonka High School. And that would create a plateau that we could move the playground out to and then construct the gymnasium on this very tight site, but construct it right up at the front of the site so that the community and other people could also use it in the evenings and on weekends for community activities and be very close to parking. There's not a lot of choices on this site because the lower level is almost all infilled wetland and basically very difficult, almost impossible to build on. At Clear Springs Elementary School and at most of the remaining elementary schools, the big need was additional small group spaces. And we're also across the district, we're adding some staff restrooms. So 6 in the courtyard at Clear Springs Elementary School. At Excelsior Elementary School, we would be adding additional small group spaces for various size groups, but on east end of the central wing. At Groveland Elementary School, we would be adding a small group room and a second music room. It's one of the buildings that only has one music room. So we'd be adding a music room and small group rooms. It looks a little different because to add the small group rooms, we actually have to take an existing classroom and subdivide it. So we move that out and then put the small group rooms into the interior of the building. At Minnetonka Elementary School, their media center, they're with over 900 students, their media center is actually the smallest one of all 6 of our elementary schools at a little over 2,000 square feet. And most of the other elementary schools have, they all have actually of 3,400 to 4,000 square feet. So we'd look at adding a media center onto the addition, onto the north side, with an addition to the north side of the building. And that actually is the footprint of the media center at Groveland Elementary School. We would add 6 additional small group rooms and restrooms into a courtyard. And then we would have either small group or large group, some flexible space by basically just repurposing the existing media center. It could remain as a large open space or it could be subdivided further to more small group rooms. And then at Scenic Heights Elementary School, we would be looking at adding 6 small group rooms and a couple of our staff restrooms. At Minnetonka High School, the big need that was the number one priority of Principal Erickson and the staff was to basically reconfigure the counseling area to provide better access for students to meet with counselors and psychologists and have more individualized spaces in there so that they can have service more students. We really have that area was actually designed and renovated in 2008 when there was about 2,700 students in the building, and now there's almost 3,600. And so we need to look at capturing some space and expanding it a little bit and reconfiguring it to provide additional space for counseling services. And we would also look at, again, same reason with the number of students we have adding onto the cafeteria on the south end of the cafeteria. So there's projects that are available for future considerations, needs developed. The ones that weren't highlighted in green but are on the list, they were identified as being important enough to make the list. But they can fund the nucleus for a long-range facility plan. And there's various methods of funding alternatives coming forward. There could always be a future building bond referendum after an operating referendum revenue increase has been secured. In the past, we've used a lot of lease levy and operating capital lease purchase mechanisms, and those are actually becoming available again as we retire some bonds, and as interest rates drop and we can restructure some bonds, we'll have some ability there. There's some self-generating funding at community education, identical to what we did back in 2018. We got some approval from the legislature to take some surplus funds out of the fund balance of community education and plow it back into an addition. And one of the projects is identified was an addition for more early childhood education rooms. So there's the opportunity to do that again. So these are ways that items on the list can continue to be achieved, over time, or as part of another bond issue in the future, or more likely utilizing some of these things that are taken out of existing revenue streams. So the other thing is if projected bids and actual construction costs on the core projects come in under budget, under estimate, we could also then select some of these others to actually utilize the full proceeds of the $85 million that are proposed for this potential bond issue. The impact on the community, basically for the median home price, it would be $4.99. For the average home price, median home price of $500,000, average home price of a little over $772,000 would be $8.41. The impact of this would actually on the levy be, we're blending it in with existing general obligation debt. And so the impact of the levy would be a net increase of $1,849,000, which would be about a 2.64% increase in that portion of the levy from voter, if it was approved by the voters. So Minnesota statutes require that if we're considering facilities projects over $2 million, we submit a lot of data for review and comment, and that's what's in front of you. And part of that is that the school board approves the review and comment submission. So you're saying, yes, it's ready to go. This is a list. I'm not going to read every single one, but this is a list of many of the things that are included. There's actually more than this, but I put the key ones on here. But we actually have a detailed description of the project, of course, and the cost. But there is a statement that the school board has approved the review and comment, which we'll be doing tonight, hopefully. And we throw in a potential ballot. Doesn't mean that we're going to run a referendum, but if we run a referendum, the likely ballot question is included in this. We have to talk about the geographic area and the population, our list of our existing facilities, square footage and costs for each portion of the projects, and then any other information related to compliance with statutes and building codes. Also, we consulted with all of our neighboring municipalities related to, hey, we're considering these projects. Do you see any issues? We didn't have any issues raised or objections raised to them or concerns. So those are all good. And of course, the city and watershed district also have another detailed cut if we would end up moving forward with any of these, because we have to submit all the plans for super detailed review by them, and they could make any further modifications. But the basic consultation is like, yep, looks good, no issues from our standpoint. So that's a positive. So with all that, we've taken all that data and compiled it into about a 76, 77-page report that you have that was in your packet. And administration is recommending that the school board approve the review and comment document and authorize administration to file the review and comment document with the Minnesota Department of Education for the review and comment. So just to kind of summarize, excellence in how we live, it would have a modest tax increase if we move ahead with this. That's respectful to the taxpayers of the district. And the projects will provide better service to students in many ways. Excellence in how we lead, leaving capacity for a future operating referendum, leaving, very strategic, leaving capacity for future building bond issues if needed. These are all strategic improvement in facilities designed to enhance the way we deliver instruction today. Excellence in how we learn, providing that optimal environment for student learning. Better than what we're very creative and we make do with what we have. And so we've made do with meeting in the hallways and using storage closets. But also be able to have purpose-built science labs at the middle schools, which our current science labs are serviceable, they're usable, but a purpose-built science lab would help to enhance the program in terms of how instruction is delivered. And any purpose-built spaces facilitate learning by providing optimal learning conditions. That's one of the things I'm most proud about in our district in terms of, with our facilities. We don't try to make them be ostentatious, but they need to be in good condition. They need to be stately. And they should look important, because what happens in the buildings is important, and it really does set the tone from the minute that somebody drives past the schools or drops a student off at the curb to hop into the school. It's like the kids come to school and they know that these facilities are in good shape. They're designed for for good instruction. They like their schools, and it just lets them. It kind of sets a tone that, hey, there's important stuff going on here, so it helps them get ready for school. So with that, again, we'd like to request that you consider approving the review and comment for submission to the Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bourgeois. Let's start us off with a motion. May I have a motion to make the recommended motion here on presenting the review and comment document?
So moved.
Chris, may I have a second?
Second.
Mike. Discussion. Mike.
Thank you. I actually have a comment and then a question. First comment, we actually had a student forum that many of us participated in a couple days ago, and what you had said about the facilities looking good and creating sort of pride and inspiring the students, we actually heard that directly from the students' mouth, that having nice facilities really helps them get inspired to learn and to get to school every day and to utilize those facilities. So I wanted to back that up with some data that we had received. My question is, since you are one of the ways that you so expertly reduce costs for the district is by having an aggressive bid-seeking schedule for many of the projects that we do. With this whatever we end up finally deciding for a dollar amount, asking voters, if you are able to pull some of your magic again and reduce a lot of these costs by, we've seen probably, I would guess an average is probably 20%, but as much as 50% reduction in costs based on that early bidding schedule that you do. What can be done with that money that we have left over? Does that need to be used for specific items, or can we put that immediately to some of those projects that we're kind of putting on the shelf for now?
The general obligation bonds, the question is actually saying, shall we issue $85 million of general obligation bonds for the acquisition and betterment of district facilities? Acquisition meaning construction, not necessarily buying. We're not going to buy it, although technically you could do that because it's kind of a general term. So we have to spend it in the manner that we have indicated to the public that the money is for. So in a situation where, let's say we bid everything out and instead of $85 million, it came in at $82 million and we had $3 million left over. By statute, you can do one of two things. You could use that to say, hey, we can do the next project on the list, another acquisition and betterment of facility. If you don't do that, the regulations require that if you don't utilize the money on that, you can take the money and use it to make a bond payment. So that, in essence, you reduce the levy. So those are the two choices. So typically, most districts will do something additional with the money to make a long-term investment with it, a 100-year investment like we did next door with the Advantage Momentum building, but doesn't mean you have to. So those are the choices.
Thank you.
Kim-Marie.
So to clarify, the district has not run a building bond referendum in nearly 30 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when we're talking about budget shortfalls, and this is a different scenario, right, with the building bond referendum?
Yes. The one thing about school finance, which is different than our own personal finances or public or companies, if they're going to build a factory, that money comes out of the same dollars that the revenue that they get in to pay the employees and to basically come up with new products. In our own personal lives, the money that we get goes to pay for, hey, I'd like to buy a bike, or I got to pay the electric bill, or I'd like to buy a house, right? In education, in government, and it's done this way for a reason, there's a lot of different things that money is allocated for, and it's supposed to be spent for specific things, such as community education must be spent on community education, not the general fund. But a building bond referendum money, if you say, hey, we would like authority to use this money to build buildings, you have to build buildings with it. You can't use it to then pay salaries and benefits of instructional staff or maintenance staff. So we have not run a building bond referendum since April 23rd of 1996. So it's been basically just shy of 30 years, although I was thinking about it, and they probably started talking about it about 30 years ago because they probably started talking about it in 1995. So it's been a long time since we sailed in these waters, so to speak. If we would run a building bond referendum and it was approved, we would have to spend those dollars on what we told the public we were going to spend those dollars on.
Right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dan? Megan?
I was just going to comment at the study session, one of the questions was around operating costs. And so I saw you've done a lot of work just in the 2 weeks since the study session. So I appreciated seeing that in there so that we just have a more clear picture of the overall project and scope. So thank you for that.
Yes. And that is a requirement of the review and comment. We have to put those operating costs in there. And they do that because they want to make sure school districts don't all of a sudden, hey, we're going to open up this new building, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, we got to pay for a principal and this, et cetera. So it's very wise, a wise thing that the legislature did to put that in there just to make sure they remind school districts to cover everything.
Dan?
Mainly just want to say thank you to you and Carrie Lindberg and everyone who served on the facilities task force and worked for over a year to put this in front of us and get ready to put it in front of the folks at the state. I think it's a fantastic presentation that helps us, thread the needle of doing everything we can to improve our district and respecting our taxpayers and making sure that we preserve some levy capacity for an operating referendum down the road. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. You made the point about how you can only spend the referendum dollars on the things that they've been approved for, and you only can spend the building money on buildings, for example. And I think it's important for the community to remember that the opposite is also true. We're in a world that we haven't been in for a while in Minnetonka, where we have been cutting in order to right-size our budget in ways that we haven't had to in the past. And unfortunately, this is not going to be a method to solve that problem. This is a method to address some long-standing facilities problems that we haven't been able to take care of through facilities maintenance bonds. This is a lift that we have to do from time to time, and it's come up its time, and we want to keep ourselves on track. David.
Just one part for the community. This is less than half of the original identified ask and need for our system. Paul, and through community surveys and board input, has come up with a package that will lead us forward instructionally and meet the needs, 100% needs of our system. But it certainly, it came down from almost 190 million to 140 million to 85 million. So there's a respect of the tax base, and that we should take what we absolutely need at this point in time. So thanks, Paul, for that.
Yeah, and I want to second the comments about what a robust process this has been. We had a very broad cross-section of our community who was involved in the facilities task force with leadership by Carrie Lindbergh and Mr. Bourgeois here to make sure that they kept on task. But we really did hear from every section of our community and every building in the district as to what the real needs were. And I appreciate that we have done what we can to reduce the potential tax impact, reduce the potential hit on our bonding capacity. I think you've done a lot of great work, and we're really grateful for all of it.
Well, I just want to say, because it's not just me, but the other thing is everybody who works here is really inspired to make sure that every kid who comes in the door is going to be served to the best of our abilities, and that we do whatever we can to make sure each one of them can rise to the best of their abilities. So it's really easy to be passionate about doing that, and everybody in this district is passionate about doing that. So it's nice of you to say thank you to me, but there's a lot of other people that have been involved.
Agreed. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is approval of self-insurance fund premium rates and third-party administrator for fiscal year 26. Superintendent Law.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, on an annual basis, we actually have a committee of people that reviews the current rate of our insurance and matches that with the cost, and then makes adjustments as needed for the future. Tonight, Mr. Bourgeois is going to summarize that process and make recommendations for the board to approve the rate setting for the next school year's insurance cost. Mr. Bourgeois.
Thank you, Superintendent Law. Mr. Chair, members of the board, we are asking you to approve some changes in our rates for self-insurance, and then also we're required by law to go out for third-party administrator services for the entity that processes our claims every other year. So there's a combination resolution at the end of this. Just for the sake of the record, we've been self-insured as a school district. Self-insured means that we have our own plan with our own plan design and our own coverage levels, as opposed to going out and buying on the open market and just taking whatever they have. And we've been self-insured since July 1st of 2001. So we've actually had 23 years of self-insurance, and during that time, our premium increases. We've had a few rough years, 3 rough years out of the 23, but the average, even with some rough years in there, has been 4.10%. When if we were buying on the open market, we would probably be having rates of 7 and 8 and 9% increases almost every year. So it's been very beneficial to the district. It takes a little bit of extra elbow grease and participation from all the bargaining units to serve on the self-insurance committee, and we collectively get together and try to decide, and figure out what's the right thing to do and coverages. We have a very robust coverage, and that's actually very beneficial to employees, particularly last year when we had a really tough year because we had a group of people who are going through some really serious things, but thankfully they had really good coverage to be able to help them. A year ago, we did have 19.8% increases, one of the 3 years that we had a double-digit increase, and a lot of it was related to just the unfortunate incidents of cancer claims. So again, thankfully, we had a really good plan. But this year, things have kind of settled back down to kind of a more normal level, and so our actuary has recommended to us that we need a 5.25% increase in our health insurance rates. The health insurance rates are in, I'm not going to read through each one of them, but the rates are in the board agenda item. But we're asking you to approve a 5.25% increase in health insurance rates to break even. Just as an FYI, the medical trend, the national trend for increases in health insurance rates and costs is 8.64%. So we're back to beating the trend this year again, as we've done for 20 out of the prior 23 years. So we're 3.31% below the national trend. For our dental trend, we also are also self-insured for dental insurance, and the national trend is running at 4.5%, but CBIZ actuaries have calculated that we need an increase of just 3.28% to continue break-even operations, which is 1.22% below the national trend. The Self-Insurance Advisory Committee met on February 18th to review these options and approve, and they voted 11-0 to recommend to the school board, who you operate as trustees of the self-insurance fund, that we increase medical premiums by 5.25% and dental premiums by 3.28%. So now shifting to the third-party administrator aspect of it, we don't process our own claims. We hire somebody with expertise to do them. And there are 4 entities in Minnesota that provide third-party administrator services. So it's a relatively exclusive club. We sent proposals, requests for proposals for those services to all 4 of them: Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota, Health Partners, Minnetonka, and United Healthcare. Proposals were received from Blue Cross Blue Shield and from Health Partners, which is our current third-party administrator. Minnetonka and United Healthcare, they acknowledged receiving the proposal, but they declined to submit. So the district self-insurance consultant, CBIZ, analyzed these for us. And just as a FYI, this current year, the fixed costs related to this being charged for FY25 by Health Partners are $955,853. Health Partners actually proposed an increase, particularly in the stop-loss portion of it, but their first-year administrative costs at their proposal were going to jump from $955,853 to $1,653,000. And the second year of the 2-year was $1,899,000 for 2-year totals of $3.553 million. Blue Cross Blue Shield actually submitted something a little more in line. Their first-year administrative costs are proposed at $1,038,000, and second year $1,133,000. So they have a very extensive network, so nobody will lose coverages. But their 2-year totals were $2.171 million, so they were basically 39% lower than Health Partners. Also, Blue Cross Blue Shield is one of the things we looked at was they said, are you willing to pass through the prescription rebates? Because it's kind of interesting. You get charged for pharmacy, but then there's all these rebates that come through, and usually the healthcare provider keeps them. But Blue Cross Blue Shield has agreed to pass those through to us. So actually, we're estimating that at $640,348, and it could be more than that. So that's going to be an advantage to the self-insurance fund going forward. The Self-Insurance Advisory Committee also voted 11-0 to recommend that the school board trustees would approve Blue Cross Blue Shield to be the contracted third-party administrator for FY26 and FY27.
Thank you. May we have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2026 health and dental insurance premiums as presented and approve Blue Cross Blue Shield as the self-insurance fund third-party administrator for fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027.
So moved.
Sally, may I have a second?
Second.
Megan. Questions or discussion? Dan.
First, it's great that the rate increases are staying at a reasonable level. That's fantastic. The third-party administrator, I've just sort of curious. It's great to know that nobody's going to lose coverage with their preferred providers or anything like that. How long have we been with health partners, and what's sort of the practical impact on employees of switching over to a new third-party administrator?
We've had health partners for, I believe, 7 years now. They've, they've won the RFP or earned the request for proposal 3 times in a row. The big thing is, quite frankly, is that they both have pretty extensive networks. Although Blue Cross Blue Shield has an even more extensive network than health partners, but all of our employees, like if somebody goes to North Memorial or one of the other providers, they'll still be able to go. So basically, the biggest change is going to be that everybody's getting new cards. But they'll have different numbers to call for the health line. There's also nurse lines and things like that. So we'll have to, school everybody up on those types of things. But it's not a major difference, and the claims are processed the same way. All the deductibles are so it's our plan. So it's actually relatively minimal. And the only reason I mention that is because there may be people out there, if they're on fully insured and their company decides, or their school district decides to go with the low bidder in an instance or something like that, they may lose coverages, and it's like, oh, you can't go to your local doctor anymore. Or, so it's important to, the reason I mentioned it's important that nobody's going to lose any coverages. We've got everything. It's our coverage. And in fact, if for some reason they said, hey, we don't have that in there, the one nice thing about being self-insured is we can say, well, we're still going to cover that in network, and you have to make sure you do that. And in fact, one of the incredibly advantageous things about this self-insurance is we've been, and I function as a plan administrator, so I can rule when people have a dispute. And we've had instances over the years, thankfully not many of them, where there have been people who have had really serious illnesses, and they probably might not make it, and they wanted to try some unique or experimental process, and I could give the green light to do that. And we literally have saved some people's lives by being able to do that. So this self-insurance plan has literally saved people's lives. So I'm just saying that, so try to hang on to it as long as we can. But again, we have the main reason to just mention that is because, or people might have a spouse they're insured with somebody else and they lose coverage. My daughters are elsewhere, living different places, and they have private insurance, and their coverage bounces up and down, and they have to go to this clinic and then they go to that clinic. We don't have any of that. We've got it all covered, and it's really just a blue card, helpline, those types of things are going to change. So really minimal stuff, but people will be able to keep their doctors.
Thank you.
Megan.
I have a follow-up question. You kind of answered it, but I'm assuming, but you can correct if I'm wrong, the deductibles and co-pays and coverages are not changing with this approval, right? They're going to be the same as the prior year?
Yes, we did not increase any deductibles or co-pays.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Chris, may I have a second?
Second.
Dan? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board reports. Marie.
As usual. I have from MCE, there's a new Explorers program manager, and she will be focusing on professional development for the programs. There are some updated requirements for the Summer's Explorer contracts. Families are now required to commit to 9 out of 10 weeks, and this was to create a more consistent schedule and to help with staffing. So I think those are two really positive updates to their programming. The Public Schools Foundation, Dreammakers, was a huge success, and they would like to give a shout out to Superintendent Law for being an MC with the mostest, they said, and they would like to have him back if they can. So that was a lot of fun. Their annual teacher funding grant recommendations are coming at the next board meeting, so I will be there as well. And let's see. Oh, and also another positive, they voted to work with our communications department to help us sponsor the Celebration of Excellence for the next 3 years. So that is a very important part of our district's success, honoring teachers and staff and community members, and we are very grateful for their support for the next 3 years as well. So we wanted to give them a big shout out as well. So those are my reports. Yeah, thank you.
Any other board reports? Sally?
So definitely want to give a shout out that on Saturday, the Community Action for Student Education, or CASE Committee, is hosting a town hall with our local state legislators. So far, at least 4 of them have confirmed. And that's going to be 11 a.m. at the Van Mo building in the Foundation Forum. And there is space for more community members. Would love to see that space filled up because this is a great opportunity.
Indeed. Any other board reports? Superintendent's report.
I'm going to piggyback on Board Member Brown's report just to say that we've got, well over 70 community members that we send an update every Friday, and they advocate on our behalf at the legislature. And almost every week I get a bounce back from one of those people that they heard from a legislature. And what we have seen this year are multiple bills that have been written with hearings coming that will benefit Minnetonka financially. So I want to give a shout out to all those CASE committee members who have stuck with us and are advocating on our behalf, along with the event on Friday, and we're going to have a day at the Capitol on the 24th. We have our community rallying with us to support our schools, and I just want to say thanks to those people.
All right. Announcements. All right. Motion to adjourn. Chris, we have a second.
Second.
Mike, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.